Welcome to It's the Economy. The Reserve Bank on June 8th put out rules under which banks can enter into compromise settlements with defaulters, borrowers who have not been able to pay. Now, some of the rules look very healthy. One, the person who gave the loan should not be the person who structures the compromise. All compromise settlements have to be approved by one level of bankers higher than the committee which structures the compromise. I mean, there are many such rules, but what has attracted maximum attention is that Reserve Bank refers to compromise settlements with willful defaulters. It says that every such case will have to be approved by the board. That's one rule they've put in. Also, willful defaulters too may be given a loan after 5 years. Now, all this has stirred a lot of opposition from unions and from the media, especially the willful defaulter clauses. To give us more perspective on these new rules, I have with me two veterans from the banking space, Mr. S.S. Mundra, former Reserve Bank of India Deputy Governor and former Chairman of Bank of Baroda, a 4-decade veteran banker. Also joining me shortly is Mr. Rajnish Kumar, former Chairman of State Bank of India. Good morning, Mr. Mundra. Mr. Kumar should be joining us shortly. But first, let us get to basics. Are compromise settlements with defaulters always allowed? Has that been a long-standing practice because the courts take time?
Let me first start with the, overall thrust of this circular. As I look at it, I think two things come out very prominently. The kind of message which RBI is giving. Number one, there is a lot of now delegation at the board level, at the banks level, that how you frame the policy. Because while you have mentioned, Reserve Bank of India has put certain basic requirements, which you mentioned in your opening statement about, how the structure should be and all that. But very many detailings are left to the boards and to the individual banks. So that is, I think, consistent with RBI's stance for quite some time to give the functional autonomy in these areas. Second, I think the point which is coming out very clearly and where we talk about the willful defaulters or the fraud account, that, after all, it is very important to recover the money. If there is a way to recover the money, that should be a priority. Get your money, because money today in hand is worth much more than what you get after a prolonged litigation. So while all other things will remain in place, but money coming should not be denied. Now, see, as far as what you mentioned, this 5 year is not something new.
Okay.
If you go back, this RBI Master Circular of 2014 or 2015, where the whole gamut around the willful defaulters is mentioned, who should be called as willful defaulter, what should be the penal action. So, very, interestingly, there was a provision, even in that circular, that if there is a case of a willful defaulter, then no additional facility should be granted to the willful defaulter. But interestingly, willful defaulters were, defined. There were 4 or 5 things. The first and foremost thing was that someone has the capacity to pay, but is not paying or unwilling to pay. So to my mind, it is something very, very abstract and is very difficult to really establish when it comes to legal or any other scrutiny. And then there were other things like diversion, siphoning, taking to the unrelated activities, falsification of accounts and all that. Over a period of time, Lata, if you will notice, barring the first category, that capacity to pay, but not willingness to pay, rest of all the categories have already moved to the category of being fraud account. Okay. And we have seen many instances that any such thing is treated as fraud.
Okay.
So that leaves us only with the first definition of being willful defaulter.
Okay.
And that is where I am coming to your question. Why one is treated as a willful defaulter? Because one has the capacity to pay but not paying. Now, if today someone is offering to pay, what is the capacity is, of course, subjective. But if let's say the capacity is 70% to pay, and that is well established, and someone is prepared to pay, then it is meeting that very fundamental requirement of being willful defaulter. And then, if he is paying, he is no more willful defaulter. He has corrected that. I would look at, from that angle.
Okay. I want to now read the rules again, but Mr. Rajnish Kumar, there is no provision in the new rules to forgive a fraud account, isn't it? This is only for the willful defaulter that Reserve Bank says you can enter into a compromise settlement. Is that correct?
No.
Yeah, Mr. Mundra, go ahead.
No, Lata. It is, if you read the circular, it includes both.
Okay.
Willful defaulter and fraud. And that is what surprises me. I'm surprised around the second part, not on the first part.
Okay, so you would be okay if they said that you can enter into a compromise settlement with willful defaulter, but not with a fraud account.
You see, I meant to say not, but on a conceptual level or even as a philosophy, you are treating someone as a fraud.
Then how can you enter into a compromise?
And then you say, I also enter into a compromise, something which...
so this must be oversight. You think this is an oversight on the part of the Reserve Bank?
No, I don't think RBI does the oversight. But here, there are a couple of things. Like, there is only one sentence. There are two sentences around this whole framework. There is one sentence is in the first part that any such thing should be only done by the board level. And second, then bank can also enter into the similar settlement with the willful defaulter first.
Yeah.
What will be the penal action and all that? Nothing is mentioned.
Yeah.
Now, let me take 2 more minutes, Lata. With this circular, they have withdrawn 3 circulars. If you look into the circular. So first circular was as old as 95, which probably was defining the original framework of willful defaulter. Other 2 circulars were subsequent, but they were really not very material to our discussion. Interestingly, these 2 circulars, you can still, the later 2 circulars, you can still navigate and find them. First circular, you cannot find them. So we don't know what is that circular and what is withdrawn.
Okay.
But as far as the master circular of 14 or 15 are concerned, RBI is silent. So those are still very much in place.
Yes.
It means all those penal provisions and all the cooling period and everything is still applicable.
Yeah, I was told that by somebody connected to the Reserve Bank, not exactly in the Reserve Bank, that willful defaulters cannot be entertained for 5 years. Although that is not mentioned in this, they said it was mentioned in the 2015 rules. Mr. Kumar, do you think any banker will go through this? I mean, until now, have you seen any banker, if this rule was there in 2015, have you heard of any banker even willing to compromise with a fraud or willful defaulter? I mean, won't you worry about vigilance, guys?
There are 2 aspects to it. There is something called time value of money and being guided by the commercial decision and the responsibility cast on the bank management. So obviously the responsibility cast on the bank management is to recover as much money as possible and as quickly as possible. 100 rupees recovered today is not the same thing 100 rupees recovered after 8 years. So I think even if you look at the bank's balance sheets and how much money they have recovered, anywhere between 40 to 50% gets recovered through one-time settlements and compromise. And fraud account also, even if there is a settlement, the banks cannot withdraw the case. There is no provision for withdrawing the case. So law will take its own course, and it is for the investigating agencies and the courts to decide that what penalty to give for the fraud committed. About default and willful default, I have always maintained that this is something which probably is unique to India, because in other jurisdictions I have not seen such differentiation.
Yeah, I get your point, sir. I mean, a person has money and is still not giving is something difficult to even prove, as Mr. Mundra said. And
this is also guided by the fact that the promoter, their lifestyle doesn't get changed. But their company may have a liability of 1,000 crore. So which promoter has the capability to, now if you go by his lifestyle, you will say he has the capability to pay. But I doubt whether they have 1,000 crore.
They may have the capability to pay 100 crore, not 10,000 crore.
RBI circular, I think most of thing it is reiteration. And many banks, at least for State Bank, I can say that if they were to now say that whether we are compliant or not, they would be 100% compliant with these guidelines which have come. And there are processes.
Okay.
There is a decision-making process
Yeah.
where all options are evaluated.
No, so 1 minute, 1 minute. Do you think any banker will have the gall, the guts, or even the desire to give a loan to someone who has been declared willful defaulter in the past? Even if, I mean, I'm a little surprised that the question of again giving a loan is even being raised by Reserve Bank. Not in this circular, but the previous.
You are very right, whether a defaulter or a willful. Once your credit history is blemished, nobody has the guts to give loan again. Because you don't know if the second loan goes into default, what will happen to you? The people who took the decision. So getting a loan from the banking system today is not easy for even who have a clean credit history. So you may have an enabling provision of 1 year, 2 year, 5 year, but it will be more on paper. In practice, I doubt whether any credit committees or board will have the courage to give loans to people who are previously who have defaulted. And I'm telling you, like even there are many industrial houses who defaulted, were in difficulty through IBC, they have settled their money. But when they go today to any bank for any financial assistance, the doors are closed.
Absolutely. I was told that by some of the bankers whom I tried to reach out to. Mr. Mundra, I couldn't get RBI to react to the many questions that came. So today you represent RBI. You tell me, I mean, what sense does this make to say you can give a loan after 5 years?
Lata, this provision was always there in a little different shape. I think I would really take time, read their master circular, which used to be still in prevalent either in July 2014 or July 2015. Now, very interestingly, as I said, there are 5-6 categories of how the willful defaulter should be classified, as I mentioned.
Yes.
As I also mentioned, barring the first case, that is the capacity but unwillingness to pay, rest all are over a period of time are treated as fraud. Let's park it there. Interestingly, there is a provision there, penal provision, that no additional facility should be given to willful defaulter. That is first para. Second para, cases where there is a diversion, siphoning, falsification of account, wrong statement or whatever, blah, 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 they should be barred for 5 years for floating new venture. This provision is as old as 9 years now.
Okay.
If you read it, now if you really read it legally, it means if only willful default is created because of the first thing, that is the capacity to pay, but unwillingness to pay. And if you purely go by this language, it means that bar of 5 years is not applicable. In that case, even that 5-year bar is not applicable. But in more serious cases of diversion, siphoning and what not, it is mentioned that they can be given loan for floating new ventures after 5 years. But I think it will be really a challenge for any banker. Any banker will have to be very, very courageous to really use these provisions and still go for new financing. What to talk about willful default and diversion and fraud? You tell me today, even if there is a group and there are several entities, and even if one account becomes NPA, that too because of the genuine circumstances, there is a reluctance to even accommodate the other companies in the same group.
Welcome back. We have been discussing the Reserve Bank's latest circular on entering into compromise settlements with defaulters. I've been speaking with Mr. S.S. Mundra, former Deputy Governor of the Reserve Bank and a former Chairman of Bank of Baroda, and Mr. Rajnish Kumar, former Chairman at SBI. Just before going to break, we discussed in detail what was really contentious, that willful defaulters and fraudsters could also be entertained for compromise settlements. But that circular is much more than willful defaulters. Willful defaulters occupies just one line. The rest of the circular is about compromise settlements with people who have turned NPA. So, Mr. Rajnish Kumar, on that, y'all must already, bankers must be entering into compromise settlements, isn't it? How are these new rules making it different?
That's what I'm saying, that the framework which RBI has recently issued, what I felt after reading it, that most of the things were already there. And even in terms of the processes, in terms of the decision making, where for willful defaulters, it has been said that only board can take decisions. So this is, I don't find anything new.
What about you, Mr. Mundra? Do you think they have put in new rules in terms of, the man who gave the loan should not be part of the compromise committee and all approvals should be by a higher authority? Are they streamlining it across banks?
Lata, actually, these are all very basic cardinal principles in banking, this conflict of interest, whether rules were there or not. Of course, these rules were always there, but this is already it is inbuilt into any bank's processes, that the person who has sanctioned will not be the same person who is doing it, and the one level above. Even for the smaller loan, even at branch level and regional office level, also this kind of gradation is there. So I agree with Rajnish. It's not something which is new. Only thing I think, as I mentioned in my opening comments also, in terms of deciding the nitty-gritties and all that, probably a lot is left to the bank's management and the board. But RBI has set certain basic principles, certain floors. Like, floor of 12 months is mentioned in RBI, or these levels of authority is mentioned. But, Lata, I want to take just 1 minute on this just to slightly amend your statement that the provisions of settlement with willful borrowers are always there. No, in this 14-15 circular, there was no specific mention about the settlements or compromise. But what I mean to say, words were not there, but spirit was very much there, because it was provided in that circular that to a willful borrower, even after 5 years, you can give loan for setting up a new project. So I just wanted to bring that clarity.
Got that. To come back to the current circular, Mr. Kumar, what is the addition it is making? Is it the feeling I got is perhaps banks were each treating compromises differently and Reserve Bank is putting ground rules? Is that the purpose of this circular?
I think that is what is more, which I feel that the banks may have followed different systems. So SBI system may be different than what Bank of Baroda is doing or a private bank is doing. So basically, some ground rules have been set by for the banks, and whatever policies or processes now banks adopt, there are certain ground rules and directions from Reserve Bank of India, which they have to keep in mind if not already there. And if already there, then you have to do nothing else.
But Mr. Kumar, is it also possible that this order has come because IBC is taking its own time, and if some such a circular is there, bankers may be emboldened to, encourage compromise settlements? Could that be the purpose of this circular?
No, I think, Lata, I also said earlier, and I'm again reiterating, when banks take such decisions, all the options on the table, whether it is IBC, whether action under SARFAESI, whether compromise, whether sale of asset to third party, all are evaluated. And then banks decide that in the given circumstances and the given case, what option is the best option to pursue. But it is a fact that the compromise or settlement, it is a faster process. But then the issue comes around price discovery. There are again methods defined that you do two valuations, independent valuations, and price discovery becomes an issue. But again, I'm aware that even if you want to enter into a compromise, that proposal itself from the existing borrower may be put through a Swiss challenge method to ensure that price is discovered in a transparent manner. But the desire of any bank would be that to recover maximum money in minimum.
I get a point. Very quickly, Mr. Mundra, just to complete this argument, do you think compromise settlements therefore will be more resorted to in MSMEs and SMEs where only one bank is involved, where multiple banks are not involved? Is that more likely?
That is already happening. But I think it will be more meaningful if it can be deployed in the larger cases, because smaller cases, in any case it is happening. And this whole willful defaulter, there is already a threshold of about 25 lakhs, where all these things become applicable. So I think that would be my take.
Okay.
But
I have a more important question for you after this. Please go ahead.
No, I just wanted to say that to my mind, this circular, as most of the things has reiterated, some of the basic framework is given. Only new element is a very clear, sentence about the willful defaulter and fraud. To my mind, that is a new element which has been introduced in a very specific manner with board level.
Okay.
To my mind, I think there had been a lot of confusion around this whole willful defaulter thing. As I mentioned in the beginning also, it goes back to 10 years. It all started with one of the CBC directive that all the cases above 25 lakhs should be examined from the viewpoint of being willful defaulters.
Yes.
Then RBI came with the framework.
Yeah.
That framework is I think, RBI, probably there is an internal feeling or realization in RBI that there has been a lot of confusion around this.
Okay.
Because in the original circular, apart from various category, RBI was very emphatic to say that it should be done very objectively, not on isolated cases. But due to the circumstances of cases, I don't think that anyone has really bothered about looking at it, because the easier option is to go on the, err on the side of caution.
Okay. Yeah. So, that is the point. So people will not misuse it because you don't want to take a risk. Bankers are unlikely to. In the media, there is a lot of noise about the word willful defaulter and them being permitted both for compromise and for another loan. That has raised a lot of heckles. As you point out, why would any banker want to get into this mess? Now, what I wanted to ask you is, as a final question, do you think something is needed from the Reserve Bank to set the matter right? Because it's ruffled so many feathers.
Yeah, I would agree. As I myself mentioned in an earlier part of discussion that just introducing one cryptic sentence, withdrawing 3 circulars which are really not the original circular around willful defaulter framework, leaves more questions rather than providing the answer. So I think it will be good to provide some of these clarifications, or maybe put some FAQs, so that there are no confusions around it.
Okay.
Regardless of the fact that with all that confusion, how many people would try to use this provision, that is altogether different question.
Okay.
But once you put an enabling thing, it should be absolutely clear to the constituency for whom it is being given.
Okay. Got that out of time. Thank you very much, Mr. Mundra and Mr. Rajnish Kumar. I just wanted to add that I had spoken to someone who was in RBI at the time of the drafting of the previous circular in 2014-15. And the person said the only different thing at this juncture is that now you have to get it approved by the board on a case-by-case basis if it is a willful defaulter. So it is actually becoming tighter. That was the provision they made. But as Mr. Mundra says, probably some clarification Reserve Bank will help. The ultimate point I'm taking away from both these veteran bankers is that just because the word willful defaulter has come in this circular on compromise settlements, don't expect bankers to go down that route. They will be even more cautious. And as Mr. Mundra said, even if there is one NPA in a whole group, bankers are wary of giving that person a second loan. So one shouldn't run away that something negative is about to happen in the banking sector. On that note, I wrap up this edition of It's the Economy. Thank you very much for watching.